Cigarettes After Sex X's album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Cigarettes After Sex. This is their third album. They are an El Paso based dream pop act, and over the last few years they have certainly kind of blown up in a really weird way. And at first I was not drinking the Kool-Aid. Their IEP that kind of put them on the map, I thought it was very average. Not only that, but it just got downright cringy at times. I saw what the band was trying to do, but I didn't think they were there just yet. Now, a couple of years later, they put out their self-titled debut album, Cigarettes After Sex. Now, this album, to me, maybe I didn't love it at the end of the day. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but I did think that this was a much more interesting blend of very ethereal dream pop and some ambient pop as well. It was very visual and monochromatic. Not only that, but each time you fall in love, I feel like it's one of the best tracks Cigarettes After Sex has ever put out. Not to mention, the band was playing to their strengths, and that was creating an atmosphere, a very visual, a very steamy, very sensual atmosphere made for soundtracking some nights of young love, baby. Now, a couple of years later, they dropped their second album, Cry, which, man, I don't know what happened here, but I have always thought this was just such a massive drop-off for the band. Things went from smoky and sexual and steamy to kind of creepy and cringy, and Cigarettes After Sex very quickly went from soundtracking nights of youthful lust and emotions to soundtracking the daily lives of 45-year-old dudes with 25-year-old girlfriends that probably like being called daddy. Now, it's been 5 years since that album, and I was kind of impressed with the singles, honestly. They weren't perfect, but they were a lot more stomachable than usual. And I will say this, once again, far from perfect, but this album is a lot better than anything that was going on their last record, Cry. Tejano Blue, early on in the record, I still do enjoy it quite a bit. It was the first single dropped in February, and I think it was a really great choice for a first single. I love the hazy atmosphere, the strings are really classy, and that lapping guitar. Man, when it is done right, it is so hypnotic. Also, lead singer Greg Gonzalez, his vocals haven't exactly changed much. If you aren't a fan of them already, this album's probably not going to change it for you. However, the more tuneful direction of this record makes his vocals a lot easier to swallow, for me at least. It's delicate, it's dainty, it's a really nice single. And they stay hot with Silver Sable. Honestly, this track caught me off guard. I think it's a really great deep cut, and honestly, one of the better tracks I've heard from the group in a while. The silky rhythms to this track are absolutely incredible, and like I said, I'm usually on the fence with Greg's voice as well, but his performance on this track is genuinely passionate. Also, really love the chorus. It's one of the most memorable of the bunch. Also, really like Holding You, Holding Me, and let me tell you, when Cigarettes After Sex really do focus and lock in on a groove, they can create magic, and that's what we get on here. This track is just so breezy and charming and legitimately sexy. It's a huge plus to this album. This track just sort of melts around you and encompasses everything, and it's awesome. It also reminds me that Cigarettes After Sex have a sound that actually works for them. I just wish that they would focus on that a little bit more. It's not that hard. I also really do love Dark Vacay. It's so steamy, it's absolutely dripping in passion, and the very visual atmosphere to this track, once again, is really done well. The pacing here is great, and it's one of the most cinematic moments on this entire record. And that's something that I miss so much about their self-titled debut. It's a great single. Oh God, but there is just still so much of this record that is just so blah, just so middle of the road, like this album's title track and intro track, X's. I mean, it's not bad. I like the ambiance quite a bit. It's still very moody and steamy and ethereal, so it's not all bad. But God, Greg does not bring his A game on this track and just kind of mumbles his way through this track. It's just not the intro that I was hoping that we would hear. Also, far from a highlight of the songwriting department as well. But then I hear tracks like Hideaway, and I'm completely shocked by just how little I have to say about it. I mean, this track is just so unbearably boring. I mean, some things happen. Greg sounds horny. There's barely any chemistry here, and even less of a tune. It's rough. The lows to this album are still very low. Same issues with the track Hot. I mean, tracks like this are my nightmare, a track that I virtually have nothing to say about it. It's not hot, it's not steamy, it's not sexy, it's not even horny, it just sounds bored. It's another very, very mixed bag. And Ambient Slide as a finale, I'm just not into it either. And I will say this, like I said, I feel like this album is a lot better than their previous work, Cry. But even though this album is marginally better, I feel like these albums are still so much to sit through. It's like eating way too much candy, just super sweet track after super sweet track. An Ambient Slide as a finale, like I was saying, it's just very middle of the road. The verses on here, they're just a mishmash of every sound that we've heard on this record kind of muffled up into one. It just sounds like we've been here so many times, and that's just so frustrating to me. And it's even more frustrating when you get to the hook on this track, which genuinely is one of the most memorable of this entire record. Oh, it's just such a mixed bag of a record, but I do stand by my thoughts. This is a step in the right direction. Baby Blue Movie, I think it's still the best track here, and it's a single that I genuinely love. It's one of the most hypnotic and mesmerizing tracks of the bunch. The lapping guitars are just so delicate and so hypnotic and meditative, and Greg's performance on this track is one of his best. And Dreams from Bunker Hill late in the record is a really nice late album treat. It's a glistening nocturnal ballad with some very, very memorable guitar. I love how cinematic it is. The melody is just so haunting. It's their sound done the best possible way. This album is just another very mixed bag from Cigarettes After Sex, but they are going back in a decent direction. They are focusing on their strengths, the cinematic vibes, the steamy atmospheres. That is where their heads should be, and not to mention the hook writing and songwriting in general on this album is so much better than where they were at a few years ago. And yes, there are a lot of very cringy, very dull, very super sweet moments that go nowhere, so we are far from out of the woods. But for Cigarettes After Sex in 2024, it's certainly a lot better. I'm feeling a decent 6 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.